This week on Full Circle Florida, the summer of wheels, auto insurance rising. So what's driving the surge? Plus, election denials part 2. And should RFK Jr. be on the debate stage? Rick Klein joining me with new insight on another wild week. But we start with the biggest news of the week, of course. Donald Trump guilty, convicted in his hush money trial. Legal analyst and former state prosecutor Janae Thomas joining us here this week. Okay, walk us through what will happen next.
So now that President Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts, he will face sentencing with the judge, and that's to happen in July, right before the Republican National Convention.
Yeah, 4 days, in fact, before the convention. So will Trump have to start serving his sentence before the election in November, or could the judge delay the serving of that sentence until after the election or somewhere down the road?
So this is what we're all looking to see. Of course, we're in unprecedented times. We've never had a president convicted of criminal charges, so we're in uncharted territory. However, there really is no reason to defer sentencing in this case, and especially until after the election, because the same judge who heard the case is supposed to be the one to sentence. Pushing it off 4 years does nothing to help anybody.
Okay, I know this is a hypothetical, but people are also wondering about this. They have been for a while. Now that Trump has been convicted, if he wins the election, could he pardon himself and essentially erase this conviction like it never happened?
So, because this is a New York state crime, he cannot pardon himself. Presidents can only pardon themselves from federal crimes.
And so then that would hold true then in Georgia, right? If that case is brought to fruition.
Correct. Any of the state charges, if the state brings the action, then the president cannot pardon. It would be the governor.
So then we're only talking about the ones that he would be able to pardon himself would be the federal case in D.C.
Correct. That would be the only one.
Okay, so he's been found guilty of one of these, 3 more to go, theoretically. Is this a signal that the other cases against Trump, which appear to be even bigger in scope and have more complexities and arguably more evidence, that they might also not go his way, or is it just a case-by-case basis based on the merits and the evidence?
It's always a case-by-case basis, but what we know is that the evidence does appear a lot stronger in the other 3 cases. So that would lend you to believe that it's probably not going to go his way, but we also have to consider the juries in the other jurisdictions being a lot more Trump-friendly, and that could also play a part in it.
So, I mean, they had a tough time in the beginning having a jury pool for this case, and this was in New York. You're talking about Georgia, you're talking about the federal case in D.C., you're talking about the one in Florida. Yeah, how do you get a jury?
It's going to be even harder now because he has this conviction and he's receiving national and international attention for being a convicted felon. The jury's not supposed to know that. So how are we going to find a jury that doesn't now know that he is a convicted felon?
And do you think this speeds up those other cases, or do you think none of those are going to happen before November?
I think that they're all going to be looking at what happens in sentencing in the New York case. And then after the sentence is determined in New York, I think that will determine what the other prosecutors do.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented.
Unbelievable. All right, Janae Thomas, thank you for helping us make sense of all this. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. We move next to a growing concern for Florida drivers, the soaring cost of auto insurance. What's driving the sharp increase? Here's my conversation this week with auto insurance expert Mike Johnson.
My car insurance literally doubled.
Yeah, definitely. I think the price of inflation has affected everything across the board.
There he is. How you doing, Big Mike? Hey, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate this.
Sure. Absolutely.
Car insurance it's going off the rails. I mean, this is, we talk about home insurance all the time in Florida, but why is car insurance becoming so expensive?
Well, a lot of it has to do with just when we talk about inflation a lot and the cost of everything, what we're seeing is the cost of parts. And I know people hear this, but parts have went up tremendously. Also with that, you got to think about the technicians. Everybody's getting raises. There's nothing wrong with that. I love that. But, what used to be $120 to fix on a car per hour is $185 now to fix on that car per hour. So all of that has to be calculated. And unfortunately, all of that kind of trickles downhill, if you understand what I'm saying. The other piece, too, is that with the cars, everybody likes all the fancy stuff. I like my car to back me in and I can take my hands off the steering wheel. Well, all of that stuff costs a lot of money. when it has to be replaced. A normal fender bender might have cost a couple thousand. Now a fender bender may cost 10 or 12,000. Yeah. And that's the difference that's kind of driving some of the price.
Yeah, you're right. There's some expensive technology in today's cars, and it's sort of become standard really for all cars now. It's not really a luxury anymore. So what can people do, Mike, if they're just looking at their insurance bills along with everything else that's going up? Are there any shortcuts that people can take, or is there any way to take the sting out of rising auto insurance?
There are ways to kind of cut away some of the fat, the extra fat. I would get with your agent, I would get with whatever company you're with, and I would look at my coverages to kind of see what it is that I have. Am I over-insured? Yes, you can be over-insured. Now, I'm not talking about when we get down to the state minimums, because once you go above that state minimum, that's 100% your responsibility. And I bet you'll pay me $10 extra a month or $100 a month instead of $10,000, if you understand what I mean.
Okay, you could go real cheap on auto insurance and have the bare minimum legal coverage possible, which I don't know is like maybe, I don't know, $10,000, something like that. Right. But if you do get into an accident, you could end up paying a lot more. So I suppose you could save some money monthly if you went with the bare minimum, but you are taking the risk that, God forbid, you get into an accident, you could end up paying a lot more than that.
Yeah, and that's a choice. I mean, me personally, if I can go spend $8 on a Heineken or something like that, then I can spend a little extra money to make sure that I don't come out of pocket. Because I can afford $150, I can afford $300. Let's say I'm talking about a year, but what I can't afford is $13,000.
Interesting point. Really great conversation. Really appreciate your insight. Thank you, friend.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
Next on Full Circle Florida, Republicans ramping up election fraud claims ahead of November. Rick Klein next.